Up and yeah, I see.
Now
Great.
it is okay.
Okay, let me share my screen and we'll get started. Okay. Are you able to see my screen? All right.
Perfect. Yeah.
Great. So let's get started by invoking the blessings of God and Guru like we always do. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. All right, Radhe Radhe again, all of you. So the shloka that we were discussing was 4.4. Now in this shloka, it's just a question that Arjun has asked, but like we often do, we take this opportunity to talk about time. You know, we always seek out opportunities to get more scriptural references to the concepts that we want to discuss as part of our broader Vedic wisdom understanding. So this shloka, I'm going to recite it. We'll probably take a few hands today because we have stuff to discuss. It's a very interesting discussion that we are going to get into, and it'll help put things in perspective as well with regards to how much time do we realistically have and what is truly the significance of time. So I'll recite it and then we'll take 5 hands, not more than that today, and then get started. Arjun Uvacha Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivaswataha Katham Etadvijaniyam Tvam Ado Proktavaniti. Okay, let's take a few hands.
Sandhya, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Yeah.
Radhe Radhe. Arjun Uvacha Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivasvataha Katham Etad Vijaniyam Tvamadau Proktavaniti.
Wonderful, very nice.
Dinesh ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Dinesh ji.
Radhe Radhe. Arjun Uvacha Apar Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivaswataha Katham Etad Vijaniyam Tvamadau Proktavaniti. Radhe Radhe.
Wonderful, very nice. Thank you, Dinesh ji.
Dinesh ji, Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Arjuna Uvacha Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivasvataha Kathametad Vijaniyam Tvamadau Proktavaniti.
Wonderful, very nice, Ramesh ji. Okay, last 4 hands. Let's freeze
Radhe
them.
Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Arjun Uvacha Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivasvataha Katham Edat Vijaniyam Tvamado Proktavaniti.
Ragi ji, Radhe Radhe. Okay, last 3 hands.
Lakshmi ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe everyone. Arjuna Uvacha Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivasvataha Katham Etad Vijaniyam Tvamadau Proktavaniti. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, thank you. Okay, last 2 hands.
Jai ji, Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Arjuna Uvacha Aparam Bhavata Janma Param Janma Vivaswataha Katham Etad Vijaniyam Tvam Ado Proktavan Iti. Radhe Radhe.
Ji, Radhe Radhe. Last but not the least, Golubji.
Golubji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe everyone.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe everyone. Radhe Radhe.
Shri
Arjuna uvacha aparam bhavata janma aparam bhavata janma param janma vibhasata katham edam vijaniya tomado praptavaniti.
Nice. Thank you, Golubji. So let's get started. In the previous shloka, Lord Krishna has said this knowledge is very confidential and top secret. But I'm revealing it to you because you are my friend and a devotee. Okay? Now, Arjun is asking the question, which I'm sure a lot of people would ask as well, right? Krishna was born at the same time when Arjun was born, and that is why he's asking this question. So going back to the previous shloka, we are going to discuss that in a little more detail in the coming session. Do you need to be a devotee or a friend of Krishna? And is that friend is the only sentiment that you can worship Krishna to be able to get his grace, where he can reveal the knowledge, this knowledge to you by sitting in your intellect and just making the concepts click. We'll talk about that. In this one, Arjun is asking that you were born much after Vivaswan. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? Now, beginning, what is the beginning? What is the beginning of time? What is a frame of reference? Is there a particular dimension? This time is a dimension, like even Einstein had said. When did it actually start is what we are talking about right now. So we'll do a quick recap of what we discussed yesterday. We introduced the biggest unit of time known to mankind, which is called Kalpa, which we are going to do a quick recap of. And today we will also talk about the smallest unit of time, which can be conceived by human beings. Okay, so we'll talk about that as well. And then we will talk about the significance of time, more so how it relates to spirituality. What is the significance of it? And we'll talk about that as well. So today we will talk about this concept. What is the significance of time on the path of spirituality? The ticking clock is what we're going to talk about. So Kalpa, we introduced this concept yesterday. Even Shrimad Bhagavad Mahapuran, it talks about it. 12.4 and 6 asserts that cycles of 14 manvantras make a kalp. That is 1 day of Brahma, which equals, okay, you can calculate that, it's basically million billion, 4.3 billion years, basically. A night of Brahma is also not as long as his daytime, and the present Kalpa is called the Varah Kalpa. That's again mentioned in Bhagavatam. Moving on, at the end of the last Kalpa, in 100 years of Brahma's life, the final dissolution of universe happens. So that 100 years we spoke, it is one breath of Mahavishnu. Okay, and then Brahmaji will rest for 100 years. There's a gap of 100 more Brahma years before the manifestation happens again. And then the Brahmaji reveals the world that is. And this creation of Srishti, Pralay and Sthiti, it keeps on repeating. It's a cyclical process. Brahmaji's life, 100 years, which is 72,000 kalpas, or million, billion, trillion, 309 trillion human years. Okay, these are some of the calculations. They are mind-boggling, I know that, but this is how it is. So if you look at it from a cosmic sense, we think Lord Krishna descended 5,000 years back. It's not too far away, that time, if you think about it. Right? It's just like somebody going to Golok, taking a cup of, I don't know, green tea or something, and coming back. That is how quick it is from a cosmic time standpoint. Okay. Now Brahmaji's 50 years together, they are called Prarardh. It's not Prarabdh, by the way. It's called Prarardh. Okay, which is, you can calculate this again. It's again million, billion, 154 trillion years. And the current age of the creation, we are in, as of, it's not 2015 AD, we are 2023. With that, it's the 50th birthday of Creator Lord Brahma. We spoke about it, that he's celebrating his golden jubilee. And we are in 28th Kali Yuga of the Manvantar. 5116, it's actually 51222 now. Years have already elapsed, and 426,778 years remain. Putting it all together, the Brahmand is little over 154 trillion human years old. and it will last for another 154 trillion human years. So for those of you who think it is Ghor Kali Yuga, the bad news is there are still 154 trillion human years to go. Humanity is not going away anytime soon. And the yuga that we are in, it's the smallest yuga, which is called Kali Yuga. Okay. So 154 trillion human years. Okay. We would do ourselves what you called, we will a favor if we don't repeat in any of these 154 trillion human years which are still remaining. And here we are talking only about our Brahmand. The creation is much vaster than that. Okay, so when we talk about taking rebirth, it is not just limited to the human years that we have here. It could be any Brahmand. God only knows where to send the soul to, right? So with that, let's move on. Now, the concept of time, as we were talking about, it comes to us from Manusmriti and Mahabharata as revealed by Saint Kanita. In our daily lives, time is measured as the smallest unit of measuring the time is called a nimesh. Okay, some people's, their name is Nimesh. So this is the smallest unit of time. And what is it? The time taken for eyelids to blink once is called one nimesh. How quickly we blink our eyes, we don't even realize that. So that is the smallest unit of time conceivable by human beings, blink of an eye. By the way, blink of an eye, you may think it's very small, but I'll tell you, when you are in devotion, okay, I'll get to that example later. So this is the smallest unit of time called nimesh. Now let's 15 nimesh. The 15 blinks when you do, it is called one kashtha. 15 units become one kashtha. Then 30 kashtha is equivalent to one kala. One kala. Now we are building on the unit of time. In no tradition they can get down to this level of granularity of time. Okay, we talk about Roman calendar. We'll look at the calendar as well now. But this is how detailed our scriptures are. It actually gets down to the most granular conceivable level that you can think of. Okay, this is called one kala. Then 30 kalas make one muhurat. You know, right? The right muhurat is there or not to do Ganesh Puja for whatever new undertaking we are going to do. So one muhurat is 30 kalas. Then 30 muhurats, they make up one ahoratra. 30 muhurats will make one day and night. And 30 days and night, we know, they are called a month, which is divided into 2 fortnights. Okay, this is how our Vedic calendar goes. It divided into 2 fortnights. What are the ones? The first one is called Krishna Paksh, or the waning lunar phase. And the other one is called Shukla Paksh, or waxing lunar phase. Right? We have the newborn babies. We say he's born in Krishna Paksh or Shukla Paksh, and their sleep cycle are dictated accordingly until it gets regularized. So this is how it gets. And then sum of 12 months is called a year on earth. Okay, so this is how the calculation of time goes. The smallest one is nimesh. Nimesh, we know that, one kashtha, the blink of an eye. Now I'll tell you a quick example from gopis. We don't even realize one blink. Now it is said that God will manifest himself when the example that is, or an analogy that is given is, you take, what level of desperation or vyakulta is needed to see God. Right now it's okay, God will come, we'll see that. So he says that you take a guy, you put his head in water and keep pressing it. Okay, don't let him come out. Okay, until it comes to a tipping point where its hands start moving, legs start shaking. Don't try that experiment. I'm just telling you, it's just an analogy. Okay, and then you take that guy out. He gasps for breath and says, you know what? If for one moment more you had kept me in water, my life fears would have evaporated. I would have left this body. So when we feel the same desperation for God, one more moment I don't see Shyam Sundar and my life fears will go away, then God will manifest himself. That is the level of Vyakulta. And talking about Nimesh, there's a story in Bhagavatam where gopis, they complain to Brahmaji because we humans are made by Brahmaji, right? He conceived this. We actually made it in the image of God, personal image of God. We are a poor reflection of him. So they say that they are complaining to Brahmaji that when Lord Krishna comes back, in the evening, in the dusk, with all the, the dust emanating from the foot hooves or the hooves of the cows on his face, and it's looking like slate color, the grayish black color. So that beautiful form that we see, the complaint from Brahmaji is, you have given us just 2 eyes to see that. Because a lot of creatures Brahmaji has created which have hundreds of eyes. I think flies, they have 100 of eyes, because when you try to catch them just like that, they run away. That's because they can see from all the directions. They say, you have just given us 2 eyes, and on top of it, you have introduced Nimesh, blink of an eye. It's so intolerable for us. So that is the level of virah or pain they feel, looking at, devouring the beauty of God. They can't even tolerate that separation of one Nimesh. So that is one Nimesh, that's a unit of time. And then this is how it is built to come to the final year on an earth. And the lunar calendar, as you know, is more accurate than a solar calendar. They don't have to adjust it every 4 years to add that 29th February, one leap day. Okay, that is how accurate it is, because it goes by the basic fundamental unit of time and builds on top of it. Okay, so let's move on. Now that I've introduced this concept, now Vedic cycles of time, let's talk a little bit about it so that you're able to appreciate the yuga that we are in and what is the benefit of it. Okay, so let's talk about it. Vedic cycle of time is, so Satyug is 1.7 million years. Treta is 1.296, 1.2 million. Then Dwapar is 864,000 years. Kali Yuga is 432 years. If you look at it, you keep on adding 432 to each cycle. That is how it is designed. And 4 yugas, they make Chatur Yuga, which is 4.3 million years. And then one Manvantar is 71 Chatur Yugas, which is 306 million years. And one Kalp is 14 Manvantars, which is 4.3, close to 4.3 billion years. Okay, that is one day of Brahma. This is what we have already spoken about. Brahma's day is Kalp, and Brahma's life is 100 Brahma years, which basically comes down to 309 trillion years. This is what we say was going to be the age of our Earth. We are halfway through, 55 trillion years have passed, another 155 to go. Okay, so this is how the cycles basically goes. Now, in terms of scale, the benefit of performing devotion for the mentioned time in the respective yugas is equal. Let's look at it in perspective. So in Satyug, 12 years of devotion, if you do, you need a 12 years of devotion, which will be equivalent to how much? 1 year in Treta Yuga. So both are equivalent. If you do 1 in Treta Yuga, when Lord Ram descended, that is equivalent to 12 years in Satyug. Because if you're born in Satyug, those are times when the bar is high, the competition is high, you have to do things is higher as well, right? People are generally spiritually evolved. When you go to MIT or Stanford, you have to raise your level because everybody is having a high IQ. So expectation is higher as well. So 12 years in Satyug is 1 year in Treta Yuga. 1 year of Treta Yuga of devotion is equivalent to 1 month in Dwapar. In Dwapar, when Krishna avatar happened, you do 1 month of devotion. It is equivalent to 12 years of Satyug or 1 year in Treta Yuga. Now let's come to Kali Yuga. Okay, you'll be amazed to see what happens. Any guesses? Okay. 1 day and night in Kali Yuga is equivalent to 12 years of Satyug. You see how much benefit we get? And still we are lazy enough not to do that. So the greater the threat, the higher the opportunity. And to whom much is given, more is expected, kind of a deal. So you do devotion or whatever austerity, penance, anything that you perform, you get 12x years of benefit of Satyug. That is the benefit of in Kali Yuga. Okay. I hope you're able to appreciate it. So if we do devotion, and God has made it so easy here, jap, tab and all austerities and all that stuff, he doesn't expect, because we are not so strong. We are not intellectually so advanced like people in earlier ages. Even age-wise, 100 years is also, last 10-20 years as like, we start our failing faculties we have to deal with and stuff like that. In previous yugas, people would go on to live for 150, 200, 250 years with proper health and their, faculties working properly. So one day and one night in Kali Yuga is good enough for you to get the benefit of 12 years of Satyug. That's the huge benefit that we have. Now you say, how much time do we need for God realization? Let's try to put it in perspective as well. We're going to have a bit of a discussion on that too. So let me, from a time standpoint, let's talk about this story. So here's a boy. As you see, it's pretty early in the morning, maybe pre-Brahma Muhurat. So as you see, this guy sits in front of a lake, and by his side, he sees a sack, right, with few things in it, hard things in it, and he starts throwing those in water. Right? You have that tendency, pick it up and throw it. It's almost like an OCD we all have, with certain things. So he sees some sack, he start picking it up and start throwing in water. Now, as the day comes in, what happens? He sees that the sack that he was throwing from has something more precious. It has precious stones in it. So all along, this boy was picking up those stones and throwing it in water. Okay. And when the dawn breaks, it dawns on him, it was actually something very precious that he was throwing away. So then it's like, oh my God, I've wasted so much of it. Similar to that, we have 24 hours in a day, right? Which is equivalent to 12 years of Satyug. And we keep on throwing it away, okay, in water without realizing its importance. Because time is limited, super limited. We talk about age, right? People say Bhagavad Gita is a retirement plan. Thinking about age, it is not how old you are. So your age or how old you are is not dictated by how many years or how many summers or winters you have seen on earth. It is dictated by how far away you are from your exit from this earth. Okay, exit we all understand, right? And that nobody knows. It could be tomorrow, it could be next day, it could be after a year, we don't know. So somebody who's born with a prarabdha to depart from this earth at an age of 16 is very old at the age of 15. And somebody who's supposed to depart from this earth at the age of 100 or 90 is still young at 60. So this is a relative thing from that sense. And nobody knows that. Right? There's a story in Mahabharata where Yudhishthir was in his palace after Mahabharata was over, and he was Dharmaraj, right? He was known for his taking care of his praja and giving them what they need. So there was a guy who comes to him. Bhim was there in that room as well, by the way. And he comes and asks Yudhishthir for money. And Yudhishthir was very busy doing some work. And he said, you know what? You come tomorrow. He asked him to come tomorrow because he was busy. So Bhim listens to that. And Bhim goes out and says, okay, let's celebrate Diwali today. He starts distributing sweets and crackers and said, it's festival time. Until Yudhishthir sees everybody is enjoying, there are so many festivities going around, celebration all around in his kingdom. What's going on? So he asked Bhim, what's going on? He said, I only ordered it for that. He said, why did you say that? What's the occasion? He said, it's a big occasion. My big brother, Yudhishthir, that's you. You have conquered Kal. You have actually conquered death. He said, how come? He said, that guy came and you said, come tomorrow. That means you know for sure you're going to be there tomorrow. That means you have won over death. So then Yudhishthir realizes this guy looks fat. I thought the fat has gone into his brain as well, but apparently he's very intelligent. Okay. So the point is, we all think that we have time, but actually it is a very precious commodity that we have. Right? When Shankaracharya, when the Yaksh asked Arjun, he was asking question when Pandavas were in exile, Yudhishthir, he asked him this question, Kim Ascharyam? What is the most surprising thing in this world? And he replied, the most surprising thing in this world is that we are seeing people dying left, right, and center around us. And still we think we are immune from it. It is the biggest surprise of humanity. Okay. We all have Shamshan Vairagya. When we go to Shamshan, we see, that person departed, he was live and smiling the previous day and today is no more. Then immediately we have a Vairagya. Okay, life is nothing. Finally, we all have to depart. Nobody will go with us. But it is kshanik. After that, we said, bring it on, with regards to Maya and life. So that happens. So that is the key thing. Now, if we think about this concept, this is what I've kept for discussion, and we will have a good discussion around it and try to put it in perspective as well. But any questions so far before I get into that engaging discussion that we're going to have? I know we covered a lot. Anything that comes to your mind you want to share, or any questions around it? Yes, Samji, we missed you in Dallas, so good to see you back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I was.
Your voice is echoing like Akashwani. You may want to check if you have devices on. You may want to check I think there are a couple of devices you may be having. Let's move on to somebody else in the meantime.
Rahul bhai, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. There is a question in the chat that regarding the smallest unit of time, is it Truti or is it Nimesh? I think somebody has heard maybe Truti.
Truti, are they both synonymous or not? I can check it out, but this is what I know. Maybe it's Truti, it's called, or both might be synonymous.
Yeah, they might be
synonymous. Thank you for asking that. I'll double check that.
Okay.
Samji, Radhe Radhe. Can you hear us?
Sam, your thing fixed now?
Same as earlier, Samji. Yeah, we can't hear you.
After coming from Dallas, you're talking in terms of Akashwani's now.
Actually, I'm back.
We have two devices. You may want to check that. Yeah.
Tanmay ji, Radhe Radhe.
Tanmay,
Radhe Radhe, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So if we look at this, Nitinji, the previous slide, as the sensitivity of time is increasing from Satyug to Kali Yuga. So isn't it like, if we relate it like with our Dashavatara theory, like everyone is inside a womb and is evolving. So in Kali Yuga, don't we think that our senses, see, if how do we perceive time? Like when something is going on in our mind, or like outside something is moving or something, our thoughts are getting created, right? So if the sensitivity of time has increased in Kali Yuga, isn't it like, see, we all are doing sadhana, like all of you are doing for so many years. Someone is doing for 5 years, someone is doing for whatever. I'm doing it for like for past 7 months. So my question is, how our causal body dictates that death, that in this case our job is done, God has sent us for something. शुरुआत में वो एक मिक्सचर बना के भेजता है कि ये इतने आपके लाइफ में पेन होंगे और इतने सुख होंगे। अब हमारा एटीट्यूड हम उसको कैसे देखें? तो ये साधना से क्या कहीं ना कहीं डेथ का भी एक रिलेशन हो सकता है? It's a psychological, like, sorry, philosophical question. Because sensitivity has so much increased of our senses. That's why this TikTok kind of a business models are pumping up. Or
we talk purely in terms of scriptural standpoint. Death is nothing but when the body, the gross body that we are endowed with in a particular life, it becomes uninhabitable. You can't stay in that anymore. Then the soul sheds that body. It's like changing clothes. I'm just going by what Bhagavad Gita and scriptures tell us. We change clothes every day. Same thing is called death also. We changing this body also. Every day we are changing this body. In fact, in 7 years, all the cells of our body change. But that I remains. So that if we were to live in this earth for 1,000 years, we will become very torturous. Like people will become a pain for everybody around. Because this body is not suitable for the soul anymore, right? Will become a liability for so many people around. So that is why it is one of the God's mercies to take the soul out of that body and give it a suitable womb based on its karma. And that is what we call death in that sense. So that is how we have to look at death. Death basically, it's nothing but a pit stop. It's just a continuance of the journey of soul from one body to another. And that is what death is. And time is again relative, right? We have seen stories and Interstellar. If you look at Hollywood movie, all those concepts are already mentioned in Bhagavatam, So if you think about the planet, the velocity of the planet that we are in, the time, the way the time passes varies accordingly. So what happened when this Krishna Leela happened? I'll give you another dimension to time here. When the Krishna Leela happened, Brahmaji came to know about it, that Purum Purushottam Brahma has descended. So he said, all right, really? So he goes to check it out. And then he asked Naradji, who is it? He said, the boy, you see the boys who are playing, the one in blue, he's the one. The Brahmaji got buddhi. He said, no, could not possibly be. But he thought of testing him out. So the way he tests him is he actually picks up all of his friends, takes them to Sumeru Parvat, puts them there, and goes back to Brahmalok. Now, if you can imagine, Brahmaji's speed was pretty fast. Okay, he can travel at a speed of probably faster than light. So he took those friends, put it on the Sumeru Parvat, and went to Brahmalok. And in Brahmalok, the gatekeeper asked, who are you? He said, Brahmaji. He said, no, Brahmaji is sitting inside. And then he thought, okay, this is Leela. You know, I messed with that blue boy, and now he's playing a Leela with me. So he was able to put 1 and +1 together, and he again went back to Earth, to the Braj, land of Braj, to meet that blue boy, because he understood it is, you know, God himself. That is who has taken on the form of a Brahma. God also tried to play it along. He became a Brahma and sat before he could, you know, drop them to Sumeru Parvat and come back. Now that this whole thing would have happened probably in a few seconds, maybe a minute at best. But in that passage of time, 1 year, few years had passed. I think 1 year or few years had passed on the earth, and everything was working business as usual. Krishna had taken on the form of his friends, and he had done tathastus to their mothers, who always used to think, you know, how nice it would have been to have a son like Krishna. So during that 1 year, he actually blessed them so that they could feel the same bliss as him. And everything was working as usual. And Brahmaji realized, you know, everything was, although the friends were there in that cave in Sumeru Parvat, but he had taken on that form. And then that's when he realized, he goes and bows down in front of him at that point. So if you think about it, the planets where Brahmaji went, you know, Satyalok, those are at a very high velocity. So the fraction there translated to few years here on earth. And that is why 1 day of devotion actually gives you an benefit of so many years in some other loka or some other yuga as well. Okay. Coming back to Samji, is your audio fixed now? Now let's talk about, let me open up a question as well, and give benefit, chance to people who didn't have a chance to speak. Now, technically speaking, how much time do we have? Let's think about it. Life is kshanabhambur, ephemeral. So from that sense, how much time do we really have for God realization in a typical human life? And when I say typical human life, I will be very conservative. Let's say 100 years we all have. How much time do we really have? Let's work out some numbers and put it in perspective. We think we have a lot of time. And I'll give you some rough calculations to put it in perspective. Yes, let's take a few hands. I can see a few hands and build on this discussion.
Samji, Radhe.
Oh, man.
It's still not clear, Samji. We can't hear you.
Samji, I think you have two devices. You'll have to mute. Maybe you can type it in. Let's move to Sarita ji and other hands. I see Himanshu has turned on his video, so let's give him a preference. Yeah, Shyamji.
Himanshu, yeah.
Radhe everyone. So if the question is that how much time do we need, or how much time is there for us, then obviously we are the best judge for it because we know ourselves from inside. But I would like to say that if we consider the fact that we are eternal, Maya is eternal, and Bhagavan is also eternal. So obviously we haven't had the, we are still here. So if this is if based on our karmas, if this is our birth where we actually bear all our positive, fruits for our positive actions, and now the next birth, maybe we'll just be an insect again because we will maybe in Satyalok, or maybe basically Swarg mein jaake we will kharcha karenge. We can't earn anything there, right? So if that is the case, then we don't know the next time when we will get a human body again. So we take that for granted, as we are discussing today in this lecture, that we think that other people die, but we forget that we will also die. in COVID, we already saw that so many people died like that, and then people were like just shocked and they were like in pain. But then we always have to be in touch with this reality that we have to contemplate on the knowledge again and again. Otherwise, we just take it for granted. So,
Beautiful. Thank you, Manchu. I think you summed it up really nicely. Let me give you some rough calculations. Let's say 100 years of life, one third of the day. Okay, I'll discount the first few years, like 10, 15 years. Very few blessed people who have had some spiritual merit accrued, they will have some kind of a spiritual inclination, right? So typically the first 15 and last 15 you can negate, but let's say we take those as well. So one third of the time of the day we sleep, right? 8 hours everybody sleeps. If you sleep for 6 hours, it might be an exception, but 6 to 8 hours is typically people speak. So one third of life is gone there. Another one third goes into our work, whatever work or profession we take up for the prime of our life. And another one third of that remaining one third, you can say it goes in standing in line, queues, driving, gossiping, attending marriages, functions, functions of brothers, cousins, sister, all that stuff. So if you calculate it, effective time that we have in any typical life cannot be more than 4 to 5 years. Okay. But one day is equivalent to 12 years of Satyug. That is a good thing. But you calculate it honestly for yourself, where our time goes, not more than 4 to 5 years. That is also on a conservative side, I'm saying. That means when you sit for sadhana, whatever that 1 hour, 30 minutes you take, you are truly focused. It's like one-on-one with God. So we get in a typical human life, not more than 4 to 5 years. If you really put it in perspective, life, we don't have much time actually. Let's take the remaining hands to see what they have to add on to this topic. Rahul, Ankurji, yes. Let's take in Rahul then next, and then Sarita.
Radhe Radhe Nitinji. Nitinji, my question on the time slide, and when we compare this with this Ramayan period, so my nephew asked on these questions like this Ramayan period in the Google or any internet, it says 7,000 years back. But when we see our Vedic slide, it says Treta Yuga was started 12 lakhs years before or 8,64,000 years back. So how do we relate these two different times?
Treta Yuga, who says that?
Yeah, in your previous slide where you were showing that Kali Yuga, sorry, the Dwapar Yuga was 8,64,000 years duration, and Treta was in the left side. I see.
So we can calculate in that sense, right? In Kali, in the current age, we have spent how many years? 5,000 years back, Krishna came.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So we can calculate it that way. That means if you add the Dwapar and then Treta, you can calculate how many years back it finished. Right.
Right. So we are in the Kali Yuga, which is just started, say 4,000 years or 5,000 years. And before that, there was a Dwapar Yuga. So we have to go 8,64,000 years back. And then the Treta Yuga was there. So was the Rama was born somewhere 8 lakhs years before, or?
So
and
Treta
Yuga, science, yeah,
I don't know within
science
1,296 years of the duration of Treta Yuga, when did Ram descend? At the beginning, in the middle, or towards the later part? I don't know that. I can check that out.
Yes.
I think he ruled for 11,000 years is roughly, I know that. And during which Kal of those 1,296, I'm not sure about that. I can check it out. I know if there are some more references available for that. But it says the Treta Yuga itself spans for 1.2 million years. Now, during which time scale of that Ram avatar took place, I'm not very sure about that. Was it at the beginning of Treta, middle of Treta, towards the end? I don't know that. I can check that out. It's just the duration of that particular part.
Yeah, so I also try to find out some solutions. So if I compare with that latest science, which says there was a Homo sapiens 3 lakhs years before, and before that 25 lakhs years before there was a Homo habilis. So something like there was a Vanar who was helping Rama in that yuga. So something can we relate to that also? There was a Homo sapiens in the form of Vanara.
I don't know about that. See, if you're talking about did we evolve from apes? I don't know. I mean, that theory is very debatable, right? Because Brahmaji has been very creative. He said, why are you mixing my species? Yes, that what you call the mutations do happen, but is it the species have changed or converted from one to another? I don't know. Okay, that might have been that might not have been the case. But the point here is humans have existed always. It's not like first like Manu Shatrupa. If we actually go from a scriptural standpoint, he say Brahmaji actually created humans. He did not leave it to the evolution for humans to emerge. He created it right at the beginning. That is what our scriptures tell us. Okay, but yeah, other things we can actually speculate and debate about it. But for our discussion standpoint, let's just assume for now humans have always existed.
Okay, thank you, Nitinji.
Thank you. Yes, Rahul.
Radhe Radhe, there are few questions in the chat, so can I probably one of
Sure.
them is
We can pick it up. Let's get Sarita ji. I think she has raised her hand, and then we can pick up those questions.
Okay, yeah, Sarita ji.
I think we have time. Yeah, we have time. So, Radhe Radhe, Sarita ji, where you joining us from?
Yes. My question was, like, if Rama ruled for 11,000 years, was that the normal human lifespan during that time?
I don't know. It was much longer than what we are used to right now. Even I think at the time of Mahabharata, Arjun and all, they were pretty much over 100 years. Each one of the Pandavas is what I hear. And Krishna, even though he continues to look at it as a 16-year-old, he was also more than 100 at that time, right? So, so yes, the average lifespan previously used to run into thousands of years. In Satyuga, even more, and that was pretty normal. It keeps on shrinking in Kali Yuga. As you progress from one yuga to another.
Yeah. So effectively, he ruled over one generation only, right? Or was it that he was ruling over many generations?
I don't know about that. Maybe if the lifespan of that particular generation ran into thousands of years, then one generation. If lifespan was 500 years, then 2 generations. If it was 300 years, then 3 generations. That I don't know. But the thumb rule is that in those yugas, humans had much more intellectual capacity, much more physical capacity, and the average age used to be much more than what we are used to right now. They could,
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Not related to time, but previously you said if one body, sorry, becomes inhabitable for a soul, then it leaves the body, right? But when Shankaracharya,
yes, surely. Please go ahead.
Shankaracharya wanted to take another body, he entered a body which was killed, that was a king killed by a lion, right? Then how is it inhabitable for another soul, or they were able to manipulate it somehow and then?
Okay, let's understand who Shankaracharya was. Shankaracharya was an avatar of Shankarji himself. In Padma Puran, Krishna tells Shankar Bhagwan, you go and re-establish Vedas. If he had not come, we all would have been Buddhists by now and not believing in God at all. Okay, just work with you. So he was very smart. Within 30 to 34 years, he established 8 months and did that. Now, because he was a Jagat Guru, he was supposed to know on all the topics. And one of the topics that he was inquired about was about, I think, related to Kama or something like that, which of course, being an ascetic, he cannot answer. So what he did was he asked his disciples. So he was not an ordinary soul. He was an avatar of Shankar. So in order to answer that question satisfactorily, he had to experience that. So what he did was he put his body, he told his disciples to keep his body preserved. And he went into the king's body to experience the grihast and all that aspect so that he could answer that question. So he could do that because he was already a saint. Ordinary people cannot do that, right? Ghosts and all cannot possess us. They don't have that power, although movies would have you believe that. But he was a saint, so he's more of an exception at that point, who can leave their body, do astral travel and those kind of things. Ordinary people cannot do that.
Even a body that is not fit for ordinary soul, they can still inhabit, right?
God decides that there are certain things born out of prarabdha that we have to bear, tolerate, and then God decides it's time for you to leave your body. But then what is that right time? Only God knows, because there are certain things dictated by our prarabdha. Prarabdha means the destiny that we are born with. So some people, they leave pretty quickly when they are sick, and some people take long time, right? So that is something which is determined by God only.
And these souls are not bound by prarabdha, so they are on a different track completely.
Yeah, they are not bound by prarabdha, although they take on a prarabdha whenever they come in form of saints to honor God's laws. So the saints, when they descend, they are not bound by prarabdha. They are beyond prarabdha. But they pick up one of their prarabdhas when before they had become God realized to honor God's law. That, okay, I'm going to pick up this prarabdha as part of my avatar kal here on earth. So they are not bound by it as such.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarita ji. Yes, Rahul, we can take some questions now.
So there is a question from Ramaji, which is a relatively newer participant. So she says, speaking of Shanik Vairagya, this thought of getting old and then dying actually got Buddha. So what is the essence of Buddha's avatar, and what are we missing when we follow Buddhism?
Good question. The essence of Buddha's avatar is, okay, it's a very important question. See, the God, he plants his dissensions very strategically. Now, Buddha came when the Bali Pratha or the Vedas were being misconstrued by people. The Brahmins, they became go-to person. Like Jews became a go-to person for everything in the business in World War II when Hitler became upset with them. Similarly, Brahmins became the go-to person for God. They said, we are the middlemen. So they, in order to take control of the society, they started misrepresenting Vedas, selective part of Vedas for their own benefit. Until the Bali Pratha and so many Kuritis, they became so prevalent in the society that it had to be uprooted. Like a cancer, which has pervaded your entire body, you have to start from scratch. So Buddha's avatar was planted where he said, forget Vedas. Let's wipe the slate clean. And he said, you work with your consciousness only. Forget about Vedas, forget about God and everything else. So he said, just work with your consciousness, right? Buddha does not talk about God. So that was the significance where he brought the people back into the fold. Spirituality, again, initiated spirituality for them, right? If you think about Buddha, people who are atheists, who don't believe in God, he's the biggest gift for the humankind. They have something to work with, Buddhism. But as you will get into the depths of Buddhism, what do you stand to miss out? It's a good question. What you stand to miss out in that case is, of course, to begin with, you have everything to gain. But as you will progress, finally, based on your sanskars and on your efforts, God will make you meet the next level of guru who will make you understand. Finally, you have to become surrendered to God himself to cross over Maya. So in Buddhism, if you don't believe in God, you can get to a certain level, okay, with Vipassana techniques and all. But can you conquer Maya? Answer is no. Buddha was probably the only one because he was the avatar of God. You will reach a certain level, but after beyond that, you have to practice Sharanagati to God, because when you become Sharanagat to God, then only you get graced, and when you get graced, then only you can conquer Maya. Through your self-effort, you can never conquer Maya. So Buddhism was the biggest gift to humanity for people who don't want to believe in God or who don't want to listen about God. That is the biggest thing. And after Buddha went, now the people are brought back into the fold of spirituality. Shankaracharya ji came. This is how God plants. He said, okay, let me pick up from where Buddha left and introduce the formless aspect, because bringing in form, devotion would have been too much. So he re-established Vedas, because Vedas are Vedas. If people are misrepresenting it, that doesn't mean Vedas have become any lesser. So Shankaracharya ji came. After Shankaracharya ji left, I think Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, they came, who re-established the duality aspect of God, that God has a personal form too. And then finally, Kripaluji Maharaj came and he reconciled all the philosophies. So in nutshell, that is the answer. Because if Buddha had not come, people would have become atheist and they would have no basis to, for any spiritual basis whatsoever, if they don't want to believe in God. So
yeah, very
they're all strategically planted by God, one after another. Where Buddha left, Shankaracharya picked up. Where Shankaracharya left, Madhvacharya picked up. And the problem happened, people who started following one tradition, they said that is the absolute truth. It's like 5 blind men and that elephant story, until a man with eyes came and reconciled it for them, that you all were right, and yet you did not have the complete picture around it, right? So that is how these things are strategically planned. I hope I answered your question. Who asked that question?
Ramaji.
Okay, Ramaji, I hope I answered part of your question.
Namaste. Yeah, Namaste. Radhe Radhe Nitinji. I'm lucky to be here in the knowledge platform. Just wanted a little more clarification if it's okay, and do we have time?
We have about 8 more minutes before the next session, so let's quickly, we can discuss that, but I'm happy to have an offline conversation as well, but let's take one more question. Yeah, one more we can take. Ramaji, please go ahead.
Okay, no, that's not a question. It's in continuation जो आपने अभी explain किया है. Just wanted to clarify from you that this concept and misconception about Buddhism is that the Buddhists do not believe in God, and that's not a fact. Buddha always believed in the divinity and feminine divinity. Not very many people know he was a worshipper of Kali, Durga. And when he achieved enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, he was Namo Tats Bhagavate Arhate Samya Sambuddhasya. So basically, he believed in the femininity of the universe. And I don't know, this is the first time I've heard from you that that the Buddhists do not believe in gods. They
No,
do.
I'm not saying that. I think that was misinterpreted. What I'm saying is,
Okay.
people who don't believe in God, Buddhism is the easy course for them. If you talk about 90% of the people who believe in Buddhism, they don't want to hear about God. Okay. I'm not saying Buddha did not believe. You're right.
I don't think so. We all
Okay.
normally, I've been practicing Buddhism for 40 years, and we always have talked about Devi Shakti, and basically Buddhist surrender, जो आप consciousness बोल रहे हैं, they surrender to the universal consciousness. It's a concept of aham brahmosmi, the tattva
Aham
of
Brahmasmi.
Brahma,
Aham
the
Brahmasmi.
tattva, the tattva of Brahma, or the tattva of the universe is within all of us. And Shakyamuni Buddha said, जैसे मैं बुद्ध और सिद्ध हुआ हूँ, वैसे आप भी हो सकते हो. So the beauty about this is that he considered women, children, Shudra, everybody equal to achieve enlightenment. And according to हम लोग God बोलते हैं. I'm born as a Hindu, and हम लोग God बोलते हैं. And Buddha used to work on a vibrational energy consciousness level, but he never discarded the presence of a divine power, which that's the only thing I wanted to bring. I'm sorry.
Good. I'm glad you brought that point. Good. So maybe my exposure to people who follow Buddhism has been limited. So my sample size has that sample bias or sample error that the same data, right? Buddhism also has many branches, Heenyan, Shunyavad, Abhed Shunyavad, Achint. So there are many branches to it. But my exposure, but I always used to appreciate meeting them because at least they have some basis, and they would prefer not to talk about God. He said, everything is you only work with yourself, and that's how you can attain enlightenment. And that is typically used to be the argument presented by that. But I'm glad you brought that point. I would love to know more about it and discuss it more. But the key point here is that end of the day, you have to surrender, like you said. Even in Ashtanga Yoga aspect, it says Ishwar Paridhanat. You have to surrender to divinity, because without surrender, this journey can never be complete. And Bhakti takes it a little further, where we are not only reaching nirvana, enlightenment and moksha, but we go into deeper blisses which are possible, right? We have spoken about that concept. We can bring it. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow, about bhakti aspect of it, and what are the different relationships you can establish with that divinity, impersonal divinity, so to say. Okay, personalizing it, and what are the benefits of doing that? Because moksha is moksha, but are there any possibilities beyond moksha is what we are going to talk about, right? And choices us, of course, it's a spiritual milestone or a pit stop. It's not an ordinary feat to attain nirvana, but is there a higher possibility is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But good discussion around it. We have 3 more minutes. Maybe we can take a couple of more hands, and then we have a hard stop for the next session. Yes, Rahul?
There is another question. Yeah, I think there are many questions in the chat, so please fill out the feedback tracker. Because of the time constraints, we might not be able to take all of them. And
right. Yeah, please
so
do fill out the feedback tracker. We can bring those questions to tomorrow's discussion. So if we could not discuss it right now.
Yeah, I think one simple question is from Ladduji, that if the soul enters the body in accordance with its karma, then why do many claim that the baby's habits are exactly like their parents or grandparents?
See, the soul, Brahmaji has few levers. right? Such as DNA, such as the family that he's going to pick up based on where the person's soul left its journey in the previous birth. So he uses those levers to plant the soul in a particular womb. Right? So certain families, certain tendencies, if you have acquired, he knows he has a perfect match for that, knowing that, if this soul comes in this family, they can not only continue their journey, but it might be beneficial for their journey, spiritual journey going forward. And based on our karmic backlog, based on the tendencies, based on the exercise of our free will in our past lifetime, all those factors converge to have that soul come in a particular womb. We don't have that. It's a fairly complex algorithm, right? God only knows. Okay. 3 more minutes. We can take.
Samji, can we take Samji, please? It's still not clear, Samji. Sorry, I guess. Yeah. Rahul bhai, are you there?
Yeah,
please
I
go
just
ahead.
wanted to, if you want to make some announcements, I think that can be done.
Family camp is an announcement I'll continue to make until we get to the family camp. We have but please register for it if you haven't, and please travel over if you are in US. Okay, that would be my strong recommendation. As well as we have a Dallas Yoga Fest coming up as well, so do check it out. A lot of good things that happen during the Yoga Fest. A lot of good speakers they come, so avail that as well. Any other announcements, Rahul?
Yes,
Book, the Swamiji's new book, The Art and Science of Happiness, is also launched, so you can have it also.
So it is now available for pre-order, and the best thing is the first 5,000 people who order, they will get a digitally signed book from Swamiji. So that is a very good thing. And apart from this new book, since there are so many questions, there are 2 more books of Swamiji, Essence of Hinduism and then Spiritual Dialectics. I think those will answer most of the questions which are being asked. So a must read for everyone who is a spiritual seeker.
Good, thank you. It's a beautiful. See, Swamiji writes a book even before we can finish the previous one. So you can imagine and take advantage of all the books. He puts down all his experience, learnings, and everything that he can offer, and he writes it with so much of love that you just get it, read through a few pages, and it can transform your life. That is how impactful these books can be. Himanshu, real quick, we have about a minute before our next session. We hand it over to the next session.
Yeah, Radhe. I was just saying one point, that because you asked this question in the because today's discussion was related to it, that we also tend to forget that we have so much limited time, but even if we do bhakti, selfless service, everything properly, but we forget that we are also have negative tendencies. So even if we do 90%, but we have been doing 30 to 40% of the negative side, it is all gone. So it is not with us as a spiritual percentage. So that is also very important to have it in the mind all the time, that we are also losing it. Because if we have earned our spiritual percentage, it's easy for us to retain it in a way, but it's difficult if we have negative tendencies, because it will be gone then. So, yeah.
Very true. Thanks, Himanshu. Preserving is equally important. Real quick, Surendraji, I can take a few more seconds, I guess. Yes, Surendraji. Radhe Radhe, Surendraji.
In the chat box that from the time
The voice is breaking, Surendraji. I can't hear you. Sorry about that, Surendraji. You can put it in the feedback tracker.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
I've done that. I'm in the.
So Nitinji, you might want
train,
to.
the noise will be difficult.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you, everybody. Over to you, Sunil Bhai and Ajay Bhai, if you're already there. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Please make Sunilji the host actually, because right now you are the host and you can only make the other people.
Okay, I'm going to make host Sunil.
Sunilji?
Okay, I made you the host, Sunil Bhai. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Nitin Bhai. Thank you for a wonderful session.